I constantly see startup founders run into problems because they rushed into fundraising without a strategic plan. I'm Sam Wong, and I've done 5 startups with 3 exits over the last 2 decades. I'm a startup CEO coach, author, and instructor for a library of startup training classes. We're going to talk about why being overly fixated on startup fundraising is bad and how building a funding strategy solves these problems. Most founders make a crucial mistake in their fundraising by focusing on pitch tactics instead of an overall comprehensive funding strategy. We cover this in more detail in another one of our videos. Some of the most common mistakes include not raising enough money to reach the next company milestone. That means founders have to raise money in desperation, which usually means finding a bridge loan. Bridge loans are the startup's equivalent of the payday advance money lender. The money you get is very expensive, which results in extra dilution for the founders. Founders can also raise too much money or raise it too early. Doing so means you've raised funds before the company has reached optimal valuation. If you do this, founders will again get over-diluted and run the risk of losing control of their startup much faster. I've also seen founders raise money with poor terms that dramatically favor the investors. This is a big problem because concessions made in the early rounds of financing get magnified in later financing rounds. Founders can also raise money from the wrong investors. This happens when the startup has an underdeveloped value proposition, which results in disinterest from top investors. If the startup does get funding, it's going to be from less proven or less qualified investors. These problems lead to smaller upsides, loss of control, and painful issues for founders. And sadly, these problems often aren't visible for 1 to 5 years. We can learn from other startups like FanDuel, which got a big, fat $465 million all-cash acquisition. Sounds like the founders would be dreaming of mansions and supercars, but that's not what happened. The FanDuel dream ended up being a nightmare for the founders because they got nothing from the acquisition. Think about it. You're a founder. You sell your company for almost $500 million and you get nothing. How in the world does this happen? Well, FanDuel raised money with a lot of investor-friendly terms. 2 of those investor-friendly terms were liquidation preferences and drag-along rights. Liquidation preference gives an investor the right to be paid first before any employees get paid. And in some cases, the investor gets to double dip and gets paid twice from the acquisition proceeds. FanDuel investors held a $559 million liquidation preference. And since the acquisition was for only $465 million, all of that went to the investors and most of the employees got nothing. Why would the employees accept this acquisition? It turns out that they didn't have a choice because the investors also held drag-along rights, which gives one party the right to force another party to accept certain decisions. The toxic combination of these 2 terms resulted in the founders getting 0 on a $500 million acquisition. There are many more terms involved in a term sheet, which we cover in a separate training class, but we don't have time to dive into them here. The right way to fundraise for your startup is to build a funding strategy. A funding strategy consists of 4 sequential components: funding approach, funding sources, funding vehicles, and funding targets. Together, they answer 6 key questions. When should you raise funds? Why should you time your fundraise this way? How much should you raise? From where should you raise? What type of funds and from whom? This video is a brief snippet from our 4-hour funding strategy class that you can find on our website, fundablestartups.com. If this was helpful, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click the bell to be notified when we release new content. When you do this, YouTube promotes our videos to others, which allows us to spend less time on our marketing and more time creating startup content for you. We hope this video helps you build a very healthy, fundable startup.